Gentlemen, welcome to the July 2nd, 2018 Informal County Commission meeting. We have two people to address the commission tonight. I would ask both gentlemen, if you would, please come forward when I call your name. Give us your name and your address. Limit your comments to 3 minutes. You'll hear a little tone go off at the 3-minute mark. We ask you to wrap those comments up after you hear the tone. Our first person to speak is Mr. Stephen Curry. Mr. Curry.
I'm Stephen Curry. I live at 3350 John Taylor Road out in Woodlawn. And I'm here to talk about the proposed 60% increase in the hotel-motel tax to fund Mayor Durrett's proposed multi-purpose event center, or MPEC. Let's start with some other numbers. In the summary budget printed in the paper a few weeks ago, it showed that salaries and expenses have increased 12% since 2016. But revenues have only gone up by about 4%. It showed that the county had over $5 million more in expenses than in revenues. The trajectory of the expenses and having to dip into the rainy day fund means citizens will be faced with tax increases if expenses aren't reduced drastically. Now the county is proposing spending untold millions on the MPEC. I say untold because I have not seen any hard figures on what this center will cost to build and cost to operate in the future. Good governance principles would recommend getting an honest cost estimate before raising taxes. The mayor and the county commission are proposing raising the hotel taxes now and approving the MPEC before any cost estimates have been given. There is no way that those hotel-motel taxes are going to pay that capital cost. How do the citizens know whether they would be willing to pay for all of this before they get an accurate cost estimate? Or is that the real plan? Raise the taxes now without cost estimates, then when the cost estimates come in and people object, the mayor and the commissioners say, well, we've already spent money, so now we have to complete this. And then there is the issue of why county taxpayers should be paying for projects in downtown Clarksville in the first place. Another issue is that I've read that a private company is planning to build an event center near the Kohl's store off Wilma Rudolph. Governments should not be competing with private sector on things like this. I think before embarking on the taxpayer-funded MPEC, we should wait to see how that private event center plays out. I highly doubt that there will be enough event business to support two similar event centers. Lastly, since this will definitely cause an increase in more than the hotel-motel tax, this mayor's project and expense to the taxpayer should be put on the ballot for citizen approval. I know a motion related to this project was submitted earlier and failed, and I was upset when I read that. You're not protecting the taxpayers' interests. I am petitioning the county commission to put the funding and building of this event center on the ballot as soon as possible. Since you don't have a hard cost figure, it could be presented as not to exceed X dollars type of wording. I heard today that you will be voting on this plan for increasing the taxes and approving the MPEC next Monday. I also want to make sure you understand that there's an election on August 2nd. Now, I remember Mayor Durrett castigating the prior mayor for spending so much money. And now we've spent $4 million on a downtown commons, and an unknown amount is being planned to spend on this MPEC. This is very upsetting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Curry. Mr. Smitto.
Hi, Barry Smitto, 2402 Old Ashland City Road. Mayor Durrett, thank you, and State Representative Joe Pitts for telling me you'll do anything you can to help. I'm sorry I haven't had time to talk with more of you. I've just finished a booklet of new quotes I compiled from animal shelter officials all over the U.S. who separately say we need big new changes to overcome their high euthanasia rates. One Texas shelter has to euthanize many of the hundreds of kittens surrendered there every year. In Kentucky, online commenters wrote the shelter staff should be euthanized because they announced they were about to euthanize cats that were surrendered at a very high rate. People are being harmed by seeing animals suffering too. You'll see quotes from medical experts who say that staff and volunteers who see animals suffering must learn how to keep themselves emotionally healthy, or they'll be at high risk of depression, anxiety, physical illness, and even suicide. Awesome animal advocate and philanthropist Charles E. Hand said I could quote her telling me that people don't know or understand the suffering going on. The great majority of people love animals very much and will support major changes if we make sure they're aware of the suffering occurring now. To prove the need for us to join together nationwide to help animals, I Google searched using the words opioid national effort and found many groups joined together with great success. The National Governors Association wrote, though states are making progress, turning the tide on the opioid epidemic will require a coordinated response across all levels of government. Bingo. That's what we need to save millions of cats and dogs' lives, is a coordinated effort nationwide. Mayor Dirt, we need you and our commissioners to contact Governor Haslam and ask him to contact the National Governors Association and all governors about the pattern of overcapacity shelters and multiple officials separately calling for big changes. The officials' quotes plus ideas that are supported by many are explained in detail on my Facebook page titled Save Millions of Lives. I'll also email you a Word doc, and it's on savemillions.wordpress.com. I haven't had time to really edit it. We need a huge increase in press releases and PSAs with a sense of urgency so much more of the public will know that many shelters are over capacity nationwide. We can save billions of taxpayer dollars and, more importantly, millions of animals' lives, and will save people who work with animals from the high risk of depression and suicide. We love our new Animal Control Director, Super Dave Caskey, and all the staff and volunteers, nonprofits who are helping. As one nonprofit vet told us, it's never enough. Please also remember that a large number of citizens, including me, rescue many homeless animals that aren't included in the shelter stats because we take them to the veterinarians ourselves. Pastor Dr. Crawford Loritz said, life-altering change takes place when someone becomes desperate. Many of us have been desperately asking for help for a long time. The Bible says not a sparrow falls apart from God's shoulder, and I believe that includes cats and dogs and all animals. I hope and pray that God will cause all of you to understand that many of us are being desperate with dignity, and we urgently need your help to save animals' lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smitto. We will now call our meeting to order. First item of business are zoning resolutions. Mr. Spain Howard, are you going to present tonight? Sure, Mayor. Our first application, 2018, application of Carol Weems from AG to E1. Mr. Spain Howard, before you start, I had received a text message while I was sitting up here from the engineer of record on this project, and he said Mr. Blackwell had thought somebody was going to be here and they were going to be sick, or they're not going to be sick, that they were sick and they could not come. So that's why no one is here to represent this case. Okay. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Commissioners, Mayor. Our first zoning case is CZ14 is the 2018 is the case of Carol Weems Clark. The agent is Chris Blackwell. This property is located on the north frontage of Old Highway 48, approximately 2,685 plus or minus feet east of the Martha's Chapel Road and the Old Highway 48 intersection. Up on the screen, you'll see the crosshatched area of the property in question. The request is to go from agricultural to E1 Estate District, and it does encompass 2.69 plus or minus acres. Property semi-wooded with moderately sloped at the rear of the tract. This is looking into the site. Another view from the street. Property in question's on the left of this photograph. Looking down the road, the property in question's on the right. This is directly across the street. And this is the zoning map overview. A little history on this property. This property is actually owned by two sisters. It shows it's subdivided. They've recently, it was subdivided by deed, and they are now actually trying to subdivide it legally. So that's what requires the zoning case. E1 will allow for a minimum lot size of 1 acre. Page 2 of the staff report, there were no department comments of any concern. Page 3 of the staff report, the applicant's estimates are 2 lots. Our historical estimates are 2 lots. It is in the Cumberland planning area, and the staff's recommendation for approval. The proposed zoning request is consistent with the adopted land use plan. The zone change will allow the property owners to subdivide and meet minimum lots requirements, and no adverse environmental issues were identified relative to this case. And I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions of Mr. Spain Howard? Was the commission recommendation for approval as well?
I'm sorry, yes, both the planning commission and the staff's recommendation were unanimous for approval.
All right, thank you, sir. John, I'm gonna ask for the public hearing real quick, if you're okay with that. Sure. We'll now go into public hearing to hear any comments related to CZ 14 2018. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on behalf of this application? Anyone to speak on behalf of CZ 14 2018? Anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone to speak in opposition to CZ 14 2018? We'll now close the public hearing. Mr. Spain Howard.
Our next application starts on page 4 of the staff report. It's the application, it starts on page 7 of the staff report. It's the application of Nick Datello, CZ 15 2018. The request is to go from agricultural district to E1 estate district. This fronts on the northwest frontage of Guthrie Highway. It is right at 1.45 plus or minus acres. It is currently zoned agricultural. They're trying to obtain a building permit for a single family home, which would require the property to have 1.5 acres. So they're rezoning this property to E1 to meet those requirements. This would be an extension of the E1 zoning classification. It's an existing level track. There is an existing residential structure, which shows up here on the aerial photograph. This is looking on south on Guthrie Highway. The property in question's on the right. This is the property in question. My understanding is that structure will be demolished to afford them the opportunity to build another structure. It's the property to the north, and that's the property to the east across the street. And this is the property to the south. Page 8 of the staff report, there were no department comments of any concern. Page 9 of the staff report, applicant's estimate is 1 lot. Historical estimates is for 1 lot. It is in the Trenton Road planning area. The staff's recommendation is for approval. It is consistent with the adopted land use plan. The proposed zone change will bring the property into compliance with the zoning resolution so that a building permit fee for a single building permit can be issued for a single family home, and there were no adverse environmental issues, and the Planning Commission's recommendation was for approval in this case. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions of Mr. Spain Howard? Thank you, sir. We'll now go into public hearing to hear public comments regarding CZ 15 2018. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on behalf of this application? Anyone to speak on behalf of CZ 15 2018? Anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone to speak in opposition to CZ 15 2018? Public hearing is now closed. Commissioners, will now go into our resolutions. Our first resolution is Resolution 871, resolution to ratify Chapter 167 of the Private Acts of 1979, House Bill number 2710 of the 110th General Assembly of the State of Tennessee relative to tourism and the privilege tax on the occupancy of hotels and motels in Montgomery County, Tennessee. Any questions on 1871? (1872) resolution update. Resolution updating the provisions for the rules of procedures and changing the title to Internal Operating Rules of the Montgomery County Board of Commissioners. Any questions on that? Commissioner Riccone, you want to add anything to that?
Well, this came out of the Rules Committee, and basically there are very little changes. We went through and just cleaned up all the overlying or underlying rules for all the committees. The book, so to speak, that Debbie maintains that we just refer to for the committee rules for each set. This gets everything brought up. You know, for example, we were meeting on the times were wrong, and it was still called the county executive in a lot of these rules. So no fundamental changes, a lot of housekeeping kind of measures, and so this gets us complying, so we're following our rules.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Redd.
I was just wondering, I saw that 24 hours has been crossed out. Now it is 72 hours, and I was wondering the reasoning behind that was for giving notice to speak in front of the county commission.
The 24, I think our rule has been 72 hours for probably the last, Debbie, how long you been here? 12 years? And the book just said 24, so we basically made the book match what our practice had been.
Okay, I was just wondering why that had the line through it. Thank you.
Any other questions on 1872? Resolution 1873 is a resolution amending Resolution 1668 from Montgomery County Fair Board to Montgomery County Fair Committee. That's really the reasoning behind that is a board requires you to be audited by the state. If you have funds available, this board is really a committee, and when the Rules Committee addressed it the first time, it used to be Fair Board. They left it as the Montgomery, it was a joint Fair Board. It turned into the Montgomery County Fair Board, and now we just, to clean it up, it needs to be committee. Any questions on 1873? 1874 is a resolution to establish written procedures governing purchases at publicly advertised auctions. Missy, I don't know if you're here, but I don't know if you want to say anything to it, but basically, commissioners, we have had some department heads that have asked to be able to possibly purchase some items on public advertised auctions, and there were no written rules for that procedure to do so. Ms. Davis has put together a set of rules that I think follow all of our purchasing guidelines. They can't bid on something, they can't bid over the budget. They've got to contact the purchasing office before they even start to go to bid, so it's really just establishing some rules. Any questions on 1874? 1875, resolution to amend animal care and control regulations regarding owner release of pets. Dave, do you want to come up and just touch on the highlights of that? I might booger it up. Super Dave, as Barry called you.
Establish an owner release policy and procedure for the County of Montgomery. What it will do is establish written procedures for guidelines for responsible pet owners to release their pets to animal control. It will establish a fee scale for those that are owner releasing their pets. Also, owner release euthanasias will require the owner to be low income status compliant. It's basically to help reduce our animal intake, because right now we are averaging a little over 100 animals that are owner released a month. 27% of our intakes are owner releases, which the national average is about 10% for a public shelter.
Any questions of Mr. Caskey? Commissioner Sokol.
Thank you, Mayor. What are you going to charge for those families rendering pets?
I'm sorry?
what are you going to charge families for surrendering pets?
For an owner surrender, it's going to be $30 for a dog. And I'm sorry, 1 second. For an owner surrender dog will be 30. Owner surrender cat will also be 30. For each additional puppy or kitten under 3 months will be $5 each. And for each additional puppy or kitten over 4 months of the same litter will be $10 each. Euthanasias under 40 pounds will be $35. 40 pounds to 100 pounds will be $50, and anything over 100 pounds will be $60.
So do you think this is going to help the situation, or are we going to see an increase of folks just going out in the country and dropping these pets off and driving off?
Well, I'll be perfectly honest. You may see a slight increase, but if we choose to do nothing right now, the stray dog problem will only become worse. Our intakes and euthanasias will continue to go up as the population in Montgomery County increases. So we have to start somewhere. I can't say this will be an overnight solution. This is a long-term solution, is what we have to look at. And it's going to take some education along with this to increase the responsible pet ownership.
But in the meantime, the likelihood that that's what we're going to be facing here is just abandoned pets out in the country.
It may happen. I can't say. I mean, we're getting abandoned pets right now. You know, we had 3 or 4 this last month that were just left at our front door. That's what's happening throughout the county on Fort Campbell. It's already occurring as we speak. So.
Mr. Sokol, I might add too, Dave, if you don't mind, part of the new policy has some proactive measures as well. A couple of things. Number one, people will be required to make an appointment to surrender their animal. At the point that they call in to do that, the staff at Animal Care and Control will try to convince the pet owner that there's other methods of surrendering their pet, whether it be a rescue organization, whether it be an adoption agency, but there's a lot of different organizations out there that somebody could possibly surrender their pet to besides surrender it to Montgomery County. And the other thing I would like to add is that every intake that we get, we incur a cost on it.
Correct.
We incur staff costs, but we also incur not a vet, but vetting cost on the animal, checking it for different diseases and that type stuff. So it is an expense that we're incurring every time that somebody surrenders an animal to animal control. And the last thing I would like to add, and Mr. Harper, I'll get to you when Mr. Sokol's finished. I know of 2 instances where we had somebody that came down, and I don't know if we were closed or not, but they went across the street and tied the dog up to a tree at the cemetery. We found that person and I think prosecuted that person. We had another instance not long ago where an individual was going to surrender their pet, and they came inside and somebody opened the door and the dog ran out the door and the person just walked out behind them, got in their car and drove off.
That's
well,
correct,
I think
Mayor.
that's what's probably going to happen throughout the county. I mean, if it comes to a choice of spending X number of dollars and going through this procedure to surrender a pet, as to, well, we'll just drive out here to the first lonely road we see with no traffic on it and just put the pet out in the street. And I think the latter is probably what we're going to be seeing.
If I could just add to that as well, as the mayor said, we do have a lot of dogs that get dumped at the shelter, but the next resolution you'll also see kind of goes in hand with this, is that we're going to require microchipping for all animals that are reclaimed at the shelter as well as those adopted. So in the long run, that will help us identify owners if somebody does end up dumping their pet out in the county and has a microchip, and we can scan it back and track it back to that owner. That's kind of going hand in hand with this. Also, what a lot of pet owners don't know, and that's one of the things we're going to educate them on, is there's over 50 rescues and other organizations within 1 hour of Clarksville that will help them place their pet, help them relocate it, and find another pet owner for them. You know, I think the long history of animal control being the dumping ground unwanted pets is something needs to be done. Where I came from, only 10% of our intakes were owner releases, and we charged for owner releasing your pet. We actually went out into the field and took owner releases, but we also charged for that. Historically, most animal control agencies do charge for owner surrendering. And of those ones that do charge, their normal owner release intake's around 10 to 15%, whereas ours is 27% right now.
So how are you going to charge for microchipping?
We are going to charge them, it's going to be part of the reclaim fee, and it'll be also part of the adoption fee. But we also kind of offset the adoption fee scale, so it'll kind of offset the increased cost with providing adoptions for those animals that have been at the shelter for extended period of times, as well as those that are over 6 years of age.
Suppose they don't want to pay it?
As far as the owner release fee?
The microchipping?
It'll be a required fee on reclaim.
That's what I'm asking. Mm-hmm. If they don't want to pay it, then what happens?
They won't get their pet back until they pay the reclaim fee. Just like they would now, they can't get their animal back until they pay the entire reclaim fee.
So we're back to surrendering pets.
Which there would be a fee for that as well. If they choose not to reclaim it at the shelter, then that animal would, if it's an adoptable animal, would be placed up for adoption.
Thank you.
Commissioner Harper?
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Caskey. I appreciate you being here. I've often said, I think there's 4 ways we judge a community. One's how the community treats the elderly, how they treat their children, how they treat their pets, and how they treat the people that are deceased.
Correct.
In a community. So this is very important to me. Question, you put low income status on there, but there wasn't, I didn't read anything that gave the discount for low income status. Maybe it's in there.
For low income, the only way you would be able to own a release for euthanasia, you would have to qualify as low income. So if you're not qualified as low, you wouldn't be able to do that. You would have to take it to a veterinarian to have that done.
Did you hear that?
I think my mic cut off.
His microphone went out. You wanted to repeat it.
So on an owner release euthanasia, that's the only time your low income status would qualify you for that fee. If you just came in and you didn't qualify for low income, you would have to take your pet to a veterinarian to have it euthanized.
Yep.
And that's the standard across the country for animal control agencies. So.
I appreciate that. I think this is perhaps a step in the right direction. I share many of the concerns that Commissioner Sokol has as well. I don't know how this is going to work, but.
Well, a big part of this will be the education and counseling, and that's why we're giving them that week, basically cooling off period to allow us time to possibly find their pet a home, to provide them other alternatives to owner releasing their pet. Like I said, that week gives us time to educate the owners. Along with this, there's other programs that we're going to be instituting in the future that will, start the education process, and not only with the pet owners, but also with their children in the school system. So as I said, it's not a Band-Aid. It's more of a fixing the wound over a long term.
Do you foresee more employment, that we'll need to hire more employees as a result of this policy?
I think regardless of the policy down the line, that we will require additional staff just due to the increase in population. That'll bring more animals, increased adoptions, increased calls for service for the officers. The trend over the last 5 years has been increasing.
Mr. Harper, you make a good point there regarding staff. One of the issues that we have, and Dave, you correct me if I'm wrong, but on a Monday morning, a typical Monday morning, there's 8 or 10 people lined up outside the door to surrender their pets. You can't plan a work day based on that. And so the staff is scrambling to try to get all those intakes in before they go out and do, or go into their office and do what they need to do.
That's correct. This last Monday morning, I think we had 6 or 7 people that came in probably within an hour of opening to owner release their pets.
I think it's Apollo 13 where in the mission, they say, Houston, we have a problem.
Yep.
I think we're all in the same place.
Ma'am.
We realize we have a problem.
Yes, we do.
Now, we may not have the solution presented tonight. I don't know the answer to that, but it is certainly a step maybe in the right direction.
Yeah,
So appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Harper. Commissioner Gannon?
Thank you, Mayor. Does this policy include exotic animals such as koala bears, or is it just dogs and cats?
It does basically include koala bears and exotic animals. Historically, I think due to their size, it's not much of a care issue, and I think since I've been here, we've maybe only taken in a few, I would call exotic animals that were quickly readopted the following few days. So I think right now we just got a couple guinea pigs, and those usually go pretty quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Gannon. Commissioner Genus?
I only have one question. Is your agency then going to follow here in section 12 where it talks about new owner signs a written agreement with the agency stating that he or she will have the animal spaded or neutered within 30 days for adoption?
Correct.
Is this going to come into play for your organization also?
Correct. They when they adopt, they have to have the animal spayed or neutered. So it's
Right, because I ran into that a couple weeks ago with yours. I had found one, and I had to have it spaded and neutered prior to taking it, and I went, no, the law says 30 days. I'll sign a document, and I ran into a brick wall and was unable to adopt. Will this reinforce the 30-day period?
Yes.
So I bring the dog home, introduce it to the family and to the other animals?
Yes.
Because they wanted it spaded and bring it home sick, and I went, no.
Yeah, no. No, there's a recovery period after spay and neutering, and that goes along with reducing the stray population, because a lot of people don't get their animals spayed and neutered. It's actually the lack of spay and neutering is quite high here compared to.
No, I agree with needing it and requiring it. It was just the fact that they did not know about the 30-day. Your folks didn't.
Well, when we adopt animals at our shelter, we take them to the vet and we have it done before the pet owner can pick up their new
Will you
pet.
consider following the law and allowing a 30-day grace period, or is that going to remain before you walk out and you bring a dog home cut and wounded?
Yeah, the problem with
when
that is
socialization.
even if you institute a 30-day period, a lot of people aren't going to get their animals spayed and neutered, and the recourse for us on that is quite difficult due to just the lack of enforcement ability that we have right now. So that's why even where I came from, an animal did not leave the shelter unless it was spayed or neutered. It was that was just part of it, and we had a 30-day period in Illinois, but we also, our local ordinance, we required the animal to be spayed or neutered before it went home.
Okay, I just thought that was quite a deterrent. But okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Genus. Commissioner Sokol, I'll come to you. You spoke. I'm going to go to Commissioner Red, if you're okay with that. Commissioner Red?
Thank you, Mayor. I share some of the concerns that Commissioner Sokol voiced as well, because it seems like the responsible pet owner, they will be the ones that will surrender the dog and pay the fee, but it seems like there's going to be a lot of people that's going to look at the $30 cost and plus $5 each additional for a litter and that sort of thing, and I can just see them going into the county and just letting the animals go that way. So what I'm saying is it looks like we're going to be filling one hole by digging another one, so we're going to, and then the responsible pet owners are going to be ending up with this new fee of $30 that they have to pay.
Well, I have to say, since I've been here, a majority of the people that own or release their pets, I don't want to talk badly about them, and I think a lot of them try to be good pet owners, but to me, a responsible pet owner is somebody that if they can't have that animal anymore, they're going to take every course of action to try to find a home for it, whether it be with another family member, a friend, contacting rescues. To me, that's a responsible pet owner. What we're seeing is people coming in and resorting to us as their first and only means of finding a home for that pet. They're not making any other kind of effort to rehome that pet, to find a family member that might be able to hold on to it for a short period of time. We've actually diverted quite a few because a lot of these people didn't know about the rescues previously. or they didn't even try contacting a friend or homeowner to rehome that pet, or at least temporarily hold on to it until their situation could improve. So, you know, as far as creating another hole, initially it may create a small one, but as I said, this is a long-term fix. It's not a short-term Band-Aid. So there's going to be some bumps along the way, but in the long run, it's going to be what's best for all the pet owners in the county.
Let me ask just one quick question too. How is it determined $30 to turn it in? What was the procedure to determine 30? And an owner requested euthanasia over 100 pounds to 60, and then the chart below there.
Basically, the costs were determined by what it currently roughly costs us to intake that animal, to provide the vaccines that it requires, to feed and water and care for that dog daily. The euthanasia costs were based on the cost of the drugs that have to be used in the personnel to euthanize those animals, because it is dependent on the weight of the animal. So that's where those costs come from. I was checking with a lot of the other animal control agencies in the area, and most of the prices they have range anywhere from $25 on up to $100 to owner release.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Sokol.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. There was a follow-on question I had, but I forgot to ask you. What is the primary reason these folks are surrendering their pets?
The primary reason we're given is that they have too many pets, which goes back to getting them spayed and neutered. Others are, the other large reason is people that are moving, or their housing situation changes and they can no longer have the pet. We just had one today that came in that the gentleman was moving out of town, and he owner released his dog, and he didn't even make any kind of effort to see if where he was moving would allow the dog. It was just kind of, he was moving out of state and just didn't want to bring it with him.
Does your department do paperwork on surrendered pets?
Yes, we do. We require them to fill out and sign a form that gives a profile of the pet, if there's any past issues that we need to know about, health exam, and why they're owner releasing the animal.
So is that question on there, on the paperwork?
As far as the reasoning?
Yes.
Yes, we have to, everyone that's owner releasing, they have to give us a reason as to why they're owner releasing. And that helps us determine, you know, what our biggest area. Before I came here, they didn't ask that question. We just started tracking that reasoning back in May, so we're still gathering that data.
Would it be possible for you to keep the commission informed as to the numbers?
Absolutely.
I'm kind of curious as to, after this goes into effect, whether or not we're going to see a drop, which is indicator that our worst fears, as what I spoke about earlier, is coming about.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely be tracking it, because you know that's something we want to keep tabs on and keep control of as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sokol. Mr. Johnson, before you speak, one other thing that I don't think David's mentioned and that we failed to mention is that if someone comes in to surrender an animal, they have to show proof of residence in Montgomery County, and I think that's big. Yep. We live on we're a border community that I'm sure we get quite a few animals that are coming from Kentucky. I don't know how to document that, but I'm sure we do. But now it will require proof of residency in Montgomery County. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Honestly, I believe the proof of residency is a huge step in the right direction. These changes passed the Animal Care and Control Committee, and of which I am a member. And at the meeting, I did express some concern to these changes. And to be completely honest, I still have reservations, to be frank with the commission. Well, prior to Mr. Caskey's tenure here, and even his predecessor, Ms. Farrell, some 10, 12 years ago, we had an animal that we were trying to surrender to Animal Care and Control. And it was nowhere near as complex as it is now. And just the conversation with the person at the desk as we were trying to get that accomplished, I looked at my wife and I said, no wonder people take animals and leave them in the country. I honestly believe that you are trading one job for another. you may not be flooded when you walk in the door with people lined up on the sidewalk, but your people will be out in the country rounding up stray animals that are running loose that they have to track down and try to coerce or trap just to bring back to animal care and control. I understand that responsible pet owners will do what is necessary, but I think we have to gear our procedures to the least common denominator. We have to think what is the easiest, because that's what most people will do. People that are unscrupulous, people who just don't care. And those people are out there. As much as we'd like to believe that everyone would adhere to a higher standard, that is just not the case. And honestly, I believe that this is going to increase your workload exponentially, because it's a lot easier for someone to walk in the door with a dog on a leash than it is for one of your officers to chase them down in the countryside.
Well, as I had mentioned earlier, our stray roam situation right now is also out of control. But all those animals that we're picking up had a home, as Brenda puts it, had a home at one point before they came to the shelter. So what we're seeing when we do pick up strays are people that are just letting their animals go. Because, I mean, where I came from, 90% of our intakes were pit bulls. Nothing against the breed, but it was just due to overpopulation, lack of spay and neutering. Here, I see so many different breeds coming in that are, either purebred or, a mixed breed that are truly adoptable animals or owned animals. And you can just tell by when you pick them up, just by the condition they're in, that they were owned or they were set free or just got loose and the owners just don't come in and pick them up. As I said initially, our stray intake, it may increase. I can't say that with 100% confidence that it will or it won't, but I think it's the long-term solution to help with responsible pet ownership and making pet owners accountable. If they call us and contact us, we're more than willing to help them find a new home for that pet. And we're not trying to make it more difficult for the responsible pet owner, because there are people that come in and they have situations where, they're just financially incapable of caring for the dog anymore. They can't afford vet care, but we have avenues to assist them with that through the Humane Society and through other rescues. So the solutions are there for them. It's just they need to reach out and ask us for that help.
I agree. I feel that the effort to redirect people is great. I think that a lot of people maybe don't know that there are other avenues as far as shelters or rescues or other agencies. But I think that a person a responsible person, which is what we tend to speak about, a responsible person has probably gone through every possible avenue that they know of. I know we did. I know we, everyone that we could talk to that we thought would want that animal, we tried. And it wasn't a too many animals situation, whereas there were a lot of puppies. There were adult dogs, and when you have a member of your family that is a big problem and it just makes life miserable for everyone else, and you reach that point that you feel now you have to separate from that person or that animal that you brought into your home and you made part of your family, that's not an easy choice to make. So to find out that now when you go to the one place that you know is there to help you because it's a government agency and that's why we are here, and they tell you, oh, you have to make an appointment to come back in a week. And if I could wait a week, I wouldn't be here now. I'm here now because I've exhausted everything, and now I am at the end of my rope, and what do? I am here asking my government to help me. And I'm told, well, come back in a week, and then we're going to charge you $30 to do that. It just kind of feels like a slap in the face. It really does. And honestly, I understand the comment that was made during our committee meeting that the adoption fees that we are looking at are, puts us in line with other agencies. But if we're here to make sure they have good homes and to make sure that we don't have these animals in the shelter where we are constantly taking care of them and feeding them and getting them vet care, I would think that we would try to make it as easy as possible to get them out the door. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just kind of how I feel.
Well, and that's why we're offering reduced fees for some of the less desirable animals, like the animals that have been there for an extended period of time, or the older animals that are harder to adopt just due to their age. That's why we actually reduce those fees considerably to offset the slight increase in the adoption fees for the regular dogs and cats and kittens and puppies. Going back to the owner release situation, it's from what I have seen in the time I've been here, it's a very small percentage of pet owners that come in that have tried multiple avenues before they came to the shelter. And those people we have worked with, and we've sat down with them, and they've told us every avenue or every rescue they've tried to contact, or they just have an animal that's maybe been aggressive or it's bitten before, and nobody wants to take that animal. And those are the people we're willing to work with. It's the ones that come in and say, well, have you tried this? And they haven't done anything whatsoever to try to rehome the animal. That's what we're trying to accomplish, is to educate those people and help those people find a home for that dog. Thank you.
Mr. Caskey, do you know how many strays y'all picked up last month?
Last month, off the top of my head, I think it was around 89.
89, and how many owner surrenders?
We had 101.
101? Mm-hmm. So that's 190 dogs?
Yes.
How many kennels you have for dogs?
For dogs, we have, I think, 45.
That's the math right there. I mean, if we can stop them from coming into the shelter, and I think it is proactive. I don't think it's going to be immediate, but I think long term, I think we'll see results out of it. But when you only have that many kennels and you're taking in that many animals, the result's not good. Any other questions of Mr. Caskey? All right, Dave, since seems like you're commanding the floor tonight, 1876, resolution to amend animal care and control regulations regarding microchipping of reclaimed and adopted pets. I know you touched on this briefly, but if you would, just a quick update.
So what we would also like to do is require, because right now we're only about 13% of our dogs and cats are reclaimed at the shelter right now out of all our intakes. Out of those 13%, probably only 5% of those are actually microchipped, where we can track the owner of the dog or cat, contact them, and or simply return the dog or cat to them in the field, which is what we ultimately would like to do to keep them out of the shelter. So in that, we would like to start adopting that all dogs and cats that are reclaimed at the shelter will have to be microchipped before they go home, as well as any adopted animal. There would be a nominal fee for the microchipping of the animal upon reclaim. The microchip fee for reclaimed animals would be $18.
It's not me.
Guess it doesn't like me. The adoption fee for puppies and kittens would increase to $115 to offset the microchip fee. Dogs and cats 1 year or older would increase to $105. However, dogs and cats over 6 would decrease to $75, and dogs and cats that are in the shelter for more than 30 days would decrease to $85 to offset those fees and help get our older and long-term animals out of the shelter.
Any questions of Mr. Caskey? Commissioner Albert.
If I just bring my pet in, what's a normal chipping cost?
If you just wanted to bring your dog in to get it microchipped, it would be $18.
18?
Yeah, but we're probably down the line, we'll have a microchip clinic on Fridays where we'll offer that at cost, so you can get the microchip for $6.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Caskey? Dave, thank you so much. Very detailed information you provided. On to our reports. Our trustee report on hotel motel tax, Ms. Radford. Good evening. Thank you.
as my deputy trustees are coming before you, they're going to be giving you a little packet to give you a little information regarding hotel motel occupancy tax and the audits that we perform. I'm very pleased to come and honored to come before this honorable Board of County Commissioners this evening to deliver an audit report of hotel motel occupancy tax collections in Montgomery County, Tennessee. I would also like to recognize Teresa Harrington, Convention and Visitors Bureau Director as well, who is present here this evening, and who also, if you have any questions regarding new growth and or Airbnbs, you may want to ask a few questions of, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have thereof. Regarding the information that I have found that are in your packet. Every month, the Montgomery County Commission receives a copy of the comparison of hotel occupancy tax collections. That's that report that you see on the second page. And the difference in the fiscal year amounts, if you'll look at the bottom, it's not ever reported fiscal year amounts, but because the audit committee asked for fiscal year amounts, I am reporting the fiscal year amount for 2016-17 at being $1,104,104.78, and then the fiscal year for 2017-18 is $2,124,495.94. I would guesstimate the growth difference in reporting those numbers is due to the fact that we had an eclipse of the sun back last fall, as well as other industries that have opened up out there in the industrial building park that we have, and we will continue to see more growth in the months ahead. Currently, there are 41 hotels, motels in Clarksville, Montgomery County, Tennessee. 2 of these are for campgrounds. In the summer of 2018, 2 new hotels are set to open, the Sleep Inn and Suites and Town Place Suites. True by Hilton has broken ground on Mr. C Drive, and we do not know when they plan to open. The trustee's office will be in contact and are in contact with the Sleep Inn and Suites and Town Place Suites as well, but we'll be in contact with the True by Hilton as they begin to share plans of when they plan to open. The trustee's office will be in contact with them to provide them with a copy of the law and also the forms that you also see in your packet. If you'll look on the 4th page, you will see, I'm sorry, the 5th page, you will see a copy of the blank form that we share with them. It is the hotelier's job once a month to report to the Montgomery County Trustee's Office, number 1, the gross taxable total sales. And if you'll look on the 2nd page of that, if you'll turn that over, I've given you an idea to give you an example of one that was submitted to us. We take that number, that is the $14,412 on the top, and then we also request that they provide to us a copy of their sales tax report that is on a Tennessee Department of Revenue form, tax return SLS 450. That is an official document, and if you'll look at the back of that whole packet, you will see that that is their copy of the for that given month, the gross sales tax month amount that you will see. All hotels and motels have returned their 2017-2018 monthly hotel-motel tax form under Private Act. Our audit and compliance process for 2017-2018, receiving a copy of the form from the Tennessee Department of Revenue from each and every one of our hoteliers, are 3/4 complete. We will work through the summer of this summer to complete the acquisition of all of the state forms to complete our audit. And what you will see is reported is what we have actually collected. The total amount is reported on the monthly report. Hotels, motels are allowed to deduct restaurant sales, vending machine sales, meeting room rentals, and miscellaneous income from their monthly sales reported for occupancy tax purposes. Also, they are also able to deduct those people that rent for maybe a longer period of time, over a 30-day occupancy. They would have to fill out a form like this that is for 30-day occupants, and then after the 30 days, that person staying in the hotel or motel would stop paying the occupancy tax over to us, and that is allowed by law. And proof must be submitted on all exempt sales as well. I also want to just make one comment regarding the hotels and motels, the resolution. As I was preparing for my comments, I happened to look in my Tennessee tax statistics manual that comes to the trustees' offices, and anyone can find it at UT's website. It's in their tax collection or tax manual that the UT County Technical Assistance Service provides online. And this is a printout from 2018 as well. It says that 76 counties, they levy the hotel motel tax, and Montgomery County, you can see at the top, have been 5%. And as you look at the comparison, if the tax goes up to 8%, it will make Montgomery County's hotel motel tax to be the highest in the state, but only by 0.5%, because there are others that have set their hotel motel tax at 7%, and then some at 7.5% as well. Then also on the home away Airbnbs and VRBOs, and going on the Airbnb website, I have found that there are 236 short-term rentals in Montgomery County, but we do not know where they are, because until you rent that room out, it does not tell you the address, so we don't know where they are. But as a project for the 2018 to 2022 Montgomery County Commission, the Commission may want to research and consider amending local laws regarding short-term rentals, identify and begin collecting the local occupancy tax on short-term rentals, and then also there are, as I have done some research, some consideration and real concern regarding historical zoning and their restrictions, as well as safety of families in neighborhoods are concerns, in neighborhoods that have short-term rentals, and we don't really know who is actually staying next door to us anymore. So.
Thank you, Ms. Radford. Mr. Harper, do you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Mr. Radford, I greatly appreciate you being here tonight. I
Okay.
appreciate the report. Definitely the consideration that you mentioned about Airbnb, VRBO will be a focus of the audit committee going forward, and we'll hope to change that in a short order. So I think your consideration is well taken there.
Thank you.
Quick question for you. In my research, looking at this, let me read to you something here. Chapter 167 on the taxation of the hotel motel tax, section 5 states, and I quote, "The trustee shall audit each operator in the county at least once per year and shall report on the audits made on a quarterly basis to the Board of County Commissioners."
Yes, sir.
In my study, I've been unable to find a report that has occurred after October of 2004.
There have been other reports. I think the last one we may have given was back to 2015. And then there have been other reports back to 2013, and I understand our Director of Accounts and Budgets, he found some minutes from going back to 2004 where the former county mayor, who was then trustee, reported. And that was, I guess, written into the document back years and years ago, back to 2000. And as I discussed with you on the phone, not until you brought that out to me or the committee brought it out to me, did I ever read that that was requested and written in the requirements. So I'm not going to be here in 3 months, but it's been a joy and a great honor to serve this county commission, and I will certainly pass that along in a note to the next county trustee.
I'd really like you to answer the question. My question was, why have we not received a report on the audit? Now, on a monthly basis, we do get the collections. I agree with you. You provided the collections very well on a monthly basis. But there has not been an audit presented to the Board of County Commissioners since 2004. And that was the question I asked. So I'm going to ask the question again. Why has the audit report, not been presented to the Board of County Commissioners since October of 2004?
I don't really understand what you're asking me, because I have told you I presented to you a verbal report in 2015. And then back to 2013. And I'm telling you that, you know, I did not realize that it was a requirement as per that private act that I come before this commission each and every quarter.
I'm just puzzled by this answer. I really am.
Well,
I would assume as a trustee that I'm just puzzled by the way you've answered this. You know, I asked the question very directly. It was a very simple question to answer. Well, the answer would be we haven't provided it, I think is the answer, because we haven't gotten it.
Is this not my providing it to you today?
When did you take office?
I took office in September 1, 2006. And I'm telling you, I presented you a written report, or a verbal report, I'm sorry, you know, to the commission back to 2015.
I have to say, on the behalf of Montgomery County taxpayers, I'm disappointed by this. And I was certainly disappointed when I did the research on it. And my audit committee was very disappointed at finding out that an audit report that was supposed to be submitted quarterly wasn't accomplished. And I hope that whoever we have as the next trustee will submit those reports on a quarterly basis when they're supposed to be submitted. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Radford, I have a question, if you don't mind, on this back sheet back here. Item number 6, it looks like something was redacted, so if I don't read this exactly right. It says exempt transactions total from Schedule A, line K, and I don't know if that number's $7,700, $3,300, I can't really tell.
Okay.
Where is Schedule A?
Okay. This page right here, the only item that we are to take is, and to compare, is item 1. Item 1 off of both documents. In other words, item 1 off of our document, that is our gross taxable total sales, as well as our line 1. Now, there is a line 2, and I'm sorry this did not copy well, but item 2 is also similar to our item 2, which it says less restaurant sales, meeting rooms, banquet sales, and vending machine sales. Regarding the other documents that you're referring to, you know, schedules, we don't have to view that. The only item that is reported to the state of Tennessee, state and local sales and use tax return, is the only item that we need to verify that our information matches what they turn over in state sales tax to the state, is that number 1, that amount, number 1.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Any other questions? Commissioner Redd, I'm sorry if I jumped in front of you.
Oh, that's okay.
I apologize.
If there's no line, that's fine. Thank you, Ms. Radford, for being here today. And did I hear right? Where are we if we pass Resolution 1871 in regards to the hotel motel tax? Will we be about the same as most other counties? Would we be in the high bracket, low bracket?
As far as percentage of occupancy tax, well, I have also provided you a copy of every county in the state that collects and there are, as the document says, 76 counties that levy the hotel motel tax.
And that's the total?
You will see on both pages all of the counties and where the revenue is distributed to.
And it looks like every one of them are lower than 8%.
They are. All of them are lower, but then there are some that are 7 or 7.5%. So you can kind of see that for yourself. And I also want to say in closing that I have been asked if the resolution passes next Monday evening about how quick of a turnaround, you know, the trustee's office.
Ms. Radford, I hate to be rude, but I think you're out of order. That's not related to your report. I do have a question regarding your report, though, if you don't mind.
Well, I wasn't finished.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, go right ahead. I'm sorry, but this is about a report that's required to be submitted to the county commission on a quarterly basis, an audit of every hotel that should occur in Montgomery County every year, so it would be a 1/4 sampling, I would assume, of that audit.
Okay. Well,
that's what this report is about.
Okay, I don't want to be out of order, but the form that I have here that I'm reading, this report that she's presenting, my question specifically has to do with the bottom of the first page there.
The Airbnb?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
That she talked about. If currently they are not taxed, the Airbnbs, is that correct?
No, they're not.
And I guess where people are renting out rooms for a couple of days, but you are not advocating that we tax those as well, are you? Or?
That is, I would think, for the next county commission to consider. Other cities and counties collect the occupancy tax on short-term rentals like Davidson County, but Airbnb does not collect Airbnb occupancy tax on Davidson County's behalf. It is up to the hoteliers or the small term rental owners to send that revenue to the county or the city. But the only city or county in the state of Tennessee where Airbnb has an agreement to collect on their behalf is Memphis-Shelby County.
Okay.
The other counties that are collecting the short-term rental occupancy tax must have an agreement, a short-term legal agreement in writing to, in resolution form, similar to the private act.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Red. And I apologize for interrupting you. Ms. Radford, I have one other question, and then I just have a comment. How many hotels, motels in Montgomery County in 2017 and 2018 were audited by your office?
All of them.
All of them were physically audited?
All of them were requested, and they returned over, I'm saying from 2016 to 2017, they've turned over their documentation. That is complete. We are working. We have a quarter of them left to receive that state form back to verify that all amounts are correct and completing our audits for the summer.
I certainly don't want to put words in your mouth, but when I asked you the question about number 6, you said you did not see the schedules. I would assume that if you're auditing it, you would want to see the schedules.
My staff sees the schedules. I do not see each and every document that comes into my office.
Well, I would respectfully request, according to the statute, that you provide this body at our next informal meeting, which will be August the 2nd. Oh, excuse me. I don't know what day that'll be. You may not be in office. I don't mean that ugly, but you will still be in office on August the 6th, that you provide us, according to the statute, with a sampling of the audits that had been done in the previous fiscal year of our however many 241 hotels and motels in Montgomery County. And I'd make that request to you tonight. And my last comment would be that I think it's imperative that the information that you distributed tonight, that it should be picked up. There's some personal information on there that I do not think this body should have a copy of, and I would request respectfully that each commissioner pass all those items to the far side of the room and let Ms. Radford collect those. Any other questions, Commissioner Gannon?
What items are you speaking of, sir?
On the back page of it, it has a routing number for a checking account. It has the individual's name as well at the top of the page.
I do not see that.
The bank routing number.
You can.
Just the bank.
I don't see that.
Commissioner Gannon's next.
Okay, I see.
I'd request that you turn it all back to her and let her provide you with something that hadn't been redacted.
And I will.
Commissioner Gannon?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say, having been the past chairman of the audit committee and the chairman of the investment committee, I just wanted to thank you for all your years of service.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hey, Michelle, would you help collect these through here, please, ma'am? I would, thank you, Ms. Radford. Next on our reports is our airport report. Commissioner Jason Hodges.
Yes, so not much new. The APSU is on track to start their flight school classes on campus in January. They're getting ready to start flight labs at the airport in the summer or fall semester. And then fuel sales are up for the year in a big way. It's the second highest fuel sales they've had in the last 12 years, and that's with the runway under construction for a long period of time. So I think we really need to commend John Patterson and the Airport Authority for everything that they do over there. That's about it.
Thank you. Mr. Patterson, you're here, and I want to also commend you for the job that you do. I don't know if you have anything you want to add to what Commissioner Hodges said. Commissioner Sokol, I think you have a comment.
Yes, sir. I was out at the airport last month and talked to some of the folks. The commission needs to know that the construction company that's doing the work out there is on time and on budget.
Awesome. Great job, John. Appreciate you. Our school liaison report, Commissioner Genus.
Mr. Mayor and fellow commissioners, kind of a busy time. Again, school is out, but they've briefed the school board and those of us on the committee. They had quite a few Point of Pride awards finishing up from the school year as far as your honor graduates and lots of sports activities that they were involved in. During their study session, again, they turned internally, had a good briefing on continuous improvement, where they're going, how they're looking at themselves and how they can, of course, improve in any ways available. Of course, a year-end review and the strategic work, both internal, as I already mentioned, and external, as they look at their ISO requirements and being able to look at external certified agencies and seeing where they're at in order to continue to improve. They did get a briefing from the school management to the school board, reference to the amended budget for the CMCSS budget. And they, again, as I said, looked internally, and they stayed real busy this month. And they're doing the same next month as they follow through with their summer school and looking at things that they're involved in, preparing them for the new school year.
Thank you, Commissioner Genus. We actually received an email today from, it was, most commissioners may get it. It's from Tennessee County Service Association, the BEP funding for Montgomery County is $181 million. So that's good news for us. All right, Commissioner Nichols, Nominating Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. The Nominating Committee met this evening, and we considered nominations for 3 boards. The Beer Board is a 3-year term, a maximum of 6 years. Commissioner Arnold Hodges is eligible to serve another 3-year term to expire July 2021. Commissioner Brandon Butts is eligible to serve another 3-year term to expire July 2021. Commissioner Audrey Tooley, at-large member, is eligible to serve another 3-year term to expire July 2021. Commissioner Ron Sokol, at-large member, is eligible to serve another 3-year term to expire July 2021. The second board is the Library Regional Board. It's a 3-year term, a maximum of 6 years. Gerald Beavers, nominated to serve another 3-year term to expire July 2021. Matthew Ellis has been filling an unexpired term and is now eligible to be nominated to serve his first 3-year term to expire July 2021. And the last board is the Zoning Board of Appeals, is a 5-year term. Audrey Hale is nominated to replace Grant Shaw for a 5-year term to expire July 2024. And that's all I have for you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Nichols. Under County Mayor nominations, under the EMS Committee, a 3-year term, Commissioner Martha Brockman, nominated to serve another 3-year term expiring July 2021. Commissioner Charlie Keene, nominated to serve another 3-year term expiring July 2021, and Commissioner Wallace Redd's replacement will be deferred until September. Under the Fire Committee, Commissioner Arnold Hodges nominated to serve another 3-year term expiring July 2021, and Commissioner Robert Nichols' replacement will be deferred until September. Judicial Commissioner, 1-year term, Darlene Sample, Lead Commissioner, nominated to serve another 1-year term expiring July 2019. Rebecca Becker, nominated to serve another 1-year term expiring July 2019. And Carol K. Honholt, part-time employee, nominated to serve a 1-year term expiring July 2019. And the Library Board, Ron Smithfield, is nominated to serve another 3-year term expiring July 2021. And under the County Mayor appointments, Building and Codes International Board of Appeals, this is a 5-year term. Victor Hopkins, electrical engineer, is appointed to serve his second 5-year term to expire July 2023. Commissioners, you'll see in your agenda the remaining ports that have been filed. Any old business? Under our announcements, just a reminder, if you have any suggestions for the 2018 legislative agenda, please email them to Michelle Newell or Shelley Baggett. I don't know how many we received, Michelle, but we can handle some more, I think. So if you have any legislative agenda items, please submit those to Michelle or Shelley. Tomorrow morning, there'll be a raising of the flag at the flagpole on Riverside Drive. You're all invited to join us. That'll be at 8 o'clock. It's a very informal ceremony. But I think that big pole down there has been without a flag for about 8 years, and we've partnered with the property owner and the Clarksville Sunrise Rotary Club to put a flag on that pole, and we're going to raise it tomorrow at 8 o'clock. On Wednesday, July the 4th at 10 a.m., we invite everyone to hear the reading of the Declaration of Independence, which will be held on the courthouse steps, followed by the firing of the cannon and some musket firing. So if you're in the downtown area, you're not at the Declaration of Independence reading, and you hear a few loud booms, it's the cannon and the muskets. Also, each of you should have received an invitation to a welcome reception for our new Industrial Development Board Director, Mr. Frank Tate. It's on July the 10th from 5 to 6:30 p.m. at F&M Bank. If you would like to attend and have not already RSVP'd, please do so to Robin Burton at rburton@clarksville.tn.us no later than Friday, July the 6th, or you can let our office know and we will RSVP for you. And 3 other quick announcements. For those of you who are leaving the commission, we'll obviously thank you for your service at our next meeting. But if you would, please bring your committee book in next Monday night if you didn't bring it tonight. And your iPads need to be turned in no later than the August formal commission meeting. We'd ask that you please remove any personal information or photos from your iPad before bringing it in. Anything left on it will be deleted. We'll need time to get both items prepared for the incoming commissioners. And lastly, just if you would, please keep Garland Johnson's mother in your thoughts and prayers. Garland, we lift her up. And also Kelly Jackson's mom is in the hospital as well. So if you would, please keep Commissioner Johnson and Miss Jackson's mothers in your prayers. With no further business, we'll yes, sir.
Yes, I was at a gathering last night with down at the Heritage Park for the family of Marcuvius Davis, who came up missing on June the 15th and still has not been found. African-American young man, 5'5", brown eyes, weight about 150 pounds, and he was last seen at the Marathon gas station on 101st and Petersburg on the 15th of June. So I was with the family and a lot of community folks out there last night in prayer. So ask Commission keep this family in prayers. They're still searching for their son.
Thank you. Anyone else? We're adjourned. Thank y'all.